In May of 2008, I was in New Jersey at Liberty Park, and we were having a large meeting because we were going to open the gate, and we had rented the train station where a lot of our people that settled this nation would come through. And while we were there, all of a sudden the Lord caught me up, and I had a 4-hour visitation. And he began to show me this nation. First of all, he showed me my bloodline and its path all the way from portions of France and Luxembourg in through from Ireland in through and into the U.S. He showed me the glory in my bloodline and on its path, and he showed me where the enemy had intersected my path. It was amazing vision. When you get up in that place with the Lord, you can see things differently. And that's why I kept hearing Rich say, it's time to not look at me, go up. And in it, he showed me then every state in this nation. There were 21 states that were in covenant with him. The rest weren't. There were 2 states hanging in the balance, California and Florida. And I have stayed focused. He showed me a path, it looked like a river of fire, just what we were saying tonight, in every state. But then inside each state, some states had these fiery castles. They were built down, they looked like they were in the ground. They looked like they were fire, and when this stream of fire would connect with the castle, the stream came out 7 times brighter. And I said, Lord, what is that? He said, that is my triumphant reserve that will begin to move. And he showed me 10 years ahead. That brings us to the now. Because I was actually in different aspects of time in the future. And he showed me in every state iniquitous thrones that were ruling and how worship would have to rise. I asked him, what were those fiery castles? He said, freedom outposts. Now I know they were apostolic centers. Everybody say the center. And the Lord started showing me I would develop a prototype of one. That's not a mega church. That is what he uses to flow through to change the course of things in days ahead. And then I said to the Lord, I said, Lord, how will this nation ever get free? And the Lord spoke to me and he said, it must learn to play the trump card. Well, who would have thought all of that? And so as I watched development over the last 8 years, because I had prophesied, they had it in record on the 50-state tour in 2005, that our next president would be Black American, African American, not a Black American. And of course, President Obama came into play. See, prophets, true prophets, we're not about voting. We're about saying. God doesn't do anything unless somebody says, and he has to have people say what he says. Now, let's flip to now, because something's happened. Now, when I saw Florida, this is what it looked like. It had this incredible, it looked like a snake that was controlling the center of it. And I have carried that. I've been with Paul Wilbur. We've worshiped. I've carried it. I've done things here. I've said this probably 10 times and showed this probably 10 times since 2008. But he showed me the apostolic centers that were forming for the future. But then something happened to me last week while I was here. All of a sudden, the Lord caught me up. And he said, Florida hangs in the balance. This black snake-looking highway would either change this nation for evil or change it for good. So Florida was that important for the future of this nation. And so, we came here once and we dealt with divination. Then y'all found that big python that ate the alligator. I mean, it was crazy. You got some big creatures over here, both real and spiritual. But all of a sudden, last week, I was getting ready to minister, and I started to prophesy about what God was going to be doing in Florida in the future. And the Lord caught me up and said, Florida has changed. And I said, then show me what it looks like. See, the Lord had shown me 3 states that had glory all over them. Alabama had glory all over it. Who would have thought? Arizona, who would have really thought? Had glory all over it. And then Alaska had glory all over it. I mean, you must have come here to try to help us with the rest of the South down here. Now, Texas had glory surrounding it, but it wasn't covered in glory. Tennessee was raised up and had darkness, but underneath it was glory. And so I went back, I recorded what I saw. Every state. Drew pictures of it. Said what God was saying about it. We're going to start. I'm going to share with you something in a moment, and you'll be able to follow it with us. But all of a sudden, the Lord lifted me up last week and said, this is what you look like now. Chad, can you do that? I all of a sudden saw the spine. And the Lord said, Florida has developed a backbone. And where it was moving in evil, now its voice is going to be heard in the entire nation. Now I see why I told Brian Quimman, my assistant, I said, any invitation I get to Florida, I told him that in December of this year. Any invitation I get to Florida, I have to go. But I didn't know why. I just heard the Lord say, my eye is on it. And he says, now you will be used to develop the backbone of this nation for its future. Let's stand up a moment. The Lord says, I'm going to do such a work in this state to reconcile races that it will be heard nationwide and it will be a model. I will, where there has been a threefold cord of contention, anger, and poverty working in this state, I am going to do a threefold cord of my spirit with the Caucasians, with the Hispanic Latinos, and with Black America. And the Lord says, you watch, I'll start overturning old laws and all old injustices. I will cause the ground of this state to give up its glory, and it will become a strength for the entire nation. Let's give a shout. Now, something else. He said, out of this state, and he showed me right across the center portion, the thoracic area of the spine. He said, out of this state, that is where the move of God for healing and miracles will begin to come. I will cause a move of God to be heard about, spring up, and flow all from this state. And just as this state touches both sides of the waters, this state, this healing movement will flow from one coast to the other in this nation. Let's thank God. Let's shout and thank God for what He's going to do.